for me and the guys. It was one of my, I've been in the studio before, probably twice, but never for such a awesome project. I think the overall like vision for this project was a lot more kind of formulated in terms of all the musicians like really having a similar idea to what the product was. And in some ways we didn't have that super, it was still left open for whatever could happen. But the band, we're musicians that have played together quite a bit. The guys in the band definitely listen to similar music. And we kind of played my music before. We've been used to that.
How long have you and this group been playing together?
I'd say for about a year now. So the group's got, we got Taylor Clay, he's playing saxophone. He's from Brooklyn originally, came out here. All these guys go to the University of Northern Colorado, by the way, or have gone to or graduated. Brian Claxton's playing the drums, holding it down. Ted Olson's playing bass. Him and Brian are both from Minneapolis, St. Paul kind of area. And then Tom Amend from Riverton, Wyoming, playing the piano. Really special guy to have in the group. They're like my best friends and my favorite musicians, really. So. The music can be whatever you want in your head as a listener. However you receive this stuff. If you think it sounds like Goldfish, that's awesome. But I guess my thought process behind it was, the forest. Album itself, I didn't want to leave these tunes alone, and some of them hadn't been played, and I really right now I have this collection of a lot of other stuff I'd written that I want to work into. I want to play with some people in some environments, but I haven't figured it all out. Maybe it's an instrumentation thing, maybe it's just I haven't met the right people that I hear these melodies flowing through, something like that. But I think on this album I had all of that in mind. So I guess the music on this record it's kind of just a compilation of my last 2 or 3 years of writing, and I just picked the songs that I thought worked the best with a large, a 5-piece group, like a quintet, and the songs that I rather liked the most. And some were written when I lived in Washington, and some were written here in Colorado. And I found that a lot of my music kind of conveyed that same that feeling of kind of my roots, literally my roots, like growing up and hanging out in nature and whatnot. And so when I put all these songs together, I thought they just really kind of captured that mood. I just took some of my biggest influences, which Ravel, the French Impressionist composer, he's like one of my favorites. His sense of harmony and voice leading, and the images he conveys is like so rich and dense. And I think I got into him initially from Debussy, but I found that Ravel's like my favorite guy, my favorite classical guy, and a lot of jazz harmony really comes out of that. McCoy Tyner, Bill Evans, a lot of that stuff, and the next, Elvin Jones, the kind of post-bop drummer that played with John Coltrane. He was known for his super raw sound and his ability to kind of shift time. When he played drum solos, it was almost rubato, in a sense that a classical musician will breathe or sound like they're singing and maybe play a little out of time, but with great dynamics. And so I kind of mixed the Ravel harmony and the Elvin rhythm thing. I mean, you could disagree with me, maybe that's not true, but and it kind of came out to be a song that's rather actually in the style of like maybe a 60s Wayne Shorter tune. I don't know if I'm going too much into this, but so that is what came out of that song. And I think I wrote that in Greeley about 2.5 years ago. But the song like took this whole new shape, especially with Brian Claxton on the drums, who's like really great at, he has his own sound, but he's really great at capturing the Elvin vibe. I think a lot of people would agree he like has that thing down. And so that song I feel like opens up the album really nicely, especially with the way Brian opens in the intro and the way Jared mixed it. It's just like, oh man, I feel like I'm like brought into this vibe as soon as it starts. So let's see, the second song is Missing, and that song I wrote 3 ballads about a year ago when I was a junior at UNC, and they were all kind of somewhat related. They were all kind of sad, I guess you could say. They all kind of had a dark overtone to them, and they're all on this album, by the way. So that one, I felt it was like a circle tune, which means it doesn't resolve at the top. I guess you could say it doesn't. It has an odd number of bars or something. That's just the way it came out. But I felt like there was always a little piece missing, and so I called it that, and I wanted the musicians to kind of fill that in. The bard is kind of like a traveling musician. They talk about them in medieval days. Maybe they play a pan flute. And it was inspired actually by this video game growing up. I'm sure a lot of people know it. Zelda. I loved playing all that. I have like almost all the Zelda games. And I love all the music in them. And the storyline and magic and monsters and fight between dark and light and stuff like that. And I try to capture some of the music from that game and some of the feelings. I guess the Eagle's Nest was inspired by a big, kind of cool turning point in my life. Trying to discover who I am, which we're all trying to do all the time. But really discovering my interactions with people and how I want to affect human beings and how I want to be be affected, I guess, if you treated that golden rule. And the song, I guess, was inspired by some of the music of like, say like Woody Shaw and Joe Henderson, some of that 60s, maybe kind of angular post-bop style. Orpha, which is one of those 3 ballads. And that one, I wrote one morning. I was trying to write with kind of like a mood or a dark sound in mind with some chord colors, rather than say like writing a tune with a pretty melody. And I think that was inspired by like, well, the title actually also comes from a Zelda game, Orpha. It's like a boss in one of the water temple. But that was Song of the Forest, which is the title track of the album, and that has to do with a few things. I think who inspired that musically? That's a tough one. Definitely say like, yeah, Wayne Shorter. I'd say it's like 3 main things for me. And the first one is that kind of imagery that music can convey sometimes. You can't really, it's the point in music where you can't just talk about them as chords and rhythms. And it's past theoretical, and it's like the mood that it conveys. I'm talking about the imagery that like so many things in nature can convey. Animals, I feel like sunlight, seeing sunlit beams through trees can be like super pretty, and I don't know, it can be like nostalgic, or smells, or a certain plant or color. And like to me, nature inspires so much. The Song of the Forest, it's about like my forest that I grew up in Washington, or they're not mine, but in the forests I grew up in, exploring. A lot of times I'd be alone, I'd just be like wanderlust, looking at animals or listening to sounds, or just wanting to be alone. You know, sometimes where I was in solitude and needed to get away. And then other times, all these experiences with friends and family. Sometimes we were going on a hike to a destination. Sometimes we didn't have a destination. Sometimes we were just getting lost in the forest.